I never believed in the old legends of our town, especially the one about the Witch's Grove. Every town has its spooky stories, right? But nothing could have prepared me for what we experienced that fateful night. It all started on a crisp October evening. The air was filled with the scent of fallen leaves, and a thick fog rolled in, shrouding the town in an eerie haze. My friends and I, being the thrill-seekers we were, decided to test the legend of the Witch's Grove. The story went that a witch was executed in that secluded part of the forest centuries ago. Her curse was said to haunt the area, making those who entered experience their worst nightmares. "Come on, it'll be fun," Alex had said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "It's just a story to scare kids. Besides, it's almost Halloween. What better way to get into the spirit?" Reluctantly, I agreed. There were 6 of us: Alex, the fearless leader; Emma, the skeptic; Sam and Lisa, the inseparable twins; Megan, who had a strange fascination with the supernatural; and me, the cautious one. We armed ourselves with flashlights, a couple of snacks, and our phones, ready to document our adventure. The grove was a mile into the forest, and the deeper we went, the more the atmosphere changed. The fog thickened, and the trees seemed to close in on us, their twisted branches resembling skeletal hands. Every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs made my heart race. "Maybe this isn't such a good idea," Emma muttered, her skepticism wavering as she gripped my arm. "Don't be such a wuss," Alex teased, shining his flashlight around. "Look, nothing's happening. It's just an old, spooky forest." We reached the grove just as the moon emerged from behind the clouds, casting an eerie glow on the clearing. In the center stood an ancient, gnarled tree, its bark blackened as if scorched by some unholy fire. A chill ran down my spine as I approached it. "Legend says this is where they hang the witch," Megan whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. "It's said that she cursed the town with her dying breath, vowing to haunt this place forever." Alex rolled his eyes. Yeah. So, what's next? Do we say some magic words or something?" Suddenly, a gust of wind howled through the grove, snuffing out our flashlights. We fumbled in the dark, panic setting in. The temperature dropped rapidly, and an oppressive silence fell over us. Then we heard it, a faint, sorrowful whisper that seemed to come from all around us. "Leave." My blood ran cold. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Hear what?" Alex said, trying to sound brave but failing miserably. "Leave, now." The whisper grew louder, more insistent. "Guys, maybe we should go," Lisa suggested, her voice shaking. But before we could move, the ground beneath us began to tremble. Shadows danced around the clearing, twisting into grotesque shapes. I felt a surge of terror unlike anything I'd ever known. The whispers grew into a cacophony of voices, each one more desperate and menacing than the last. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure, a woman in tattered clothing, her eyes burning with an unnatural fire. She pointed a bony finger at us, her mouth opening in a silent scream. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing Emma's hand and sprinting back towards the path. The others followed, our breaths coming in ragged gasps as we navigated the twisted maze of trees. But no matter how fast we ran, the whispers followed, growing louder, more frantic. And as we stumbled back into the heart of the forest, I realized with dawning horror that the legend was true. The witch's curse was real, and we had awoken something ancient and malevolent. The Witch's Grove had claimed us, and there was no escape from the nightmares that awaited us. We didn't stop running until we reached the edge of the forest. Only then did we dare to look back. The fog had thickened, and the grove seemed even more sinister in the moonlight. It felt like the eyes of the forest were upon us, watching, waiting. "Is everyone okay?" Alex panted, trying to catch his breath. "I think so," Sam said, though he looked as shaken as the rest of us. "What the hell was that?" "It felt real," Emma said, her voice trembling. "Those whispers, that woman." Megan, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. "It's said that if you hear the witch's whispers, she'll haunt you until you leave something of value behind as an offering." "What kind of offering?" Lisa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Megan admitted. "But if we don't figure it out, the nightmares will get worse." As if on cue, a blood-curdling scream echoed from deep within the forest, sending chills down our spines. We huddled together, the gravity of our situation sinking in. "We can't just stay here," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. "We need to get out of these woods and figure out what to do next." We started making our way back to town, the oppressive silence only broken by the occasional rustle of leaves and snap of twigs. Every sound made me jump, my nerves on edge. The night seemed to stretch on endlessly, each minute feeling like an eternity. When we finally emerged from the forest, the sight of the town's lights brought a brief sense of relief. But the relief was short-lived. As we walked back through the quiet streets, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following us. The air felt heavy, and shadows seemed to move just out of sight. We gathered at Alex's house, sitting in his living room with the lights on and the curtains drawn. The atmosphere was tense, each of us lost in our thoughts. "So, what now?" Sam asked, breaking the silence. "We need to find out more about the curse," Megan said. "Maybe there's something in the town records or old newspapers." Alex nodded. "I'll check the library tomorrow. Maybe there's something we missed." As we made our plans, a sudden loud knock on the door made us all jump. Alex cautiously approached the door, peeking through the peephole. "It's just the wind," he said, though he didn't sound convinced. "Let's get some rest. We'll start fresh in the morning." We tried to sleep, but the events of the night played over and over in my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the witch's fiery gaze and heard the whispers growing louder. Just as I was drifting off, a cold hand clamped around my wrist, yanking me from sleep. I bolted upright, my heart pounding, but there was no one there. The room was still and quiet, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. The nightmares had already begun. The next morning, we gathered in Alex's kitchen, dark circles under our eyes. None of us had slept well, haunted by visions of the witch and the ominous whispers. "We need answers," Alex said, his voice firm. "Megan and I will head to the library. The rest of you, see if you can find anyone in town who knows more about the legend." Emma, Sam, Lisa, and I agreed, splitting up to cover more ground. As I walked through the town, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. People glanced at me with wary eyes, and conversations hushed as I approached. I decided to visit Old Man Harris, the town's unofficial historian. He had lived here his entire life and knew more about the town's history than anyone. I found him sitting on his porch, his eyes fixed on the distant forest. "Mr. Harris," I called, walking up to him. "Do you have a moment?" He looked up, his eyes narrowing. "You're one of those kids who went into the witch's grove last night, aren't you?" I nodded, feeling a shiver of fear. We need to know more about the legend. What really happened there?" Harris sighed deeply, motioning for me to sit. "The witch was real. Her name was Eliza Thorne. She was accused of practicing dark magic and was executed by the townsfolk. As she was hanged, she cursed them, swearing that anyone who disturbed her resting place would suffer unimaginable horrors. Is there any way to break the curse?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He shook his head. "No one knows for sure. Some say you have to make an offering, something of great personal value. Others believe the curse is eternal." My heart sank. "Thank you, Mr. Harris. We'll try to figure something out." As I left his house, my phone buzzed with a message from Alex. "Meet us at the library. Found something." I hurried to the library, finding Alex and Megan poring over old newspapers and records. "What did you find?" I asked, sitting down beside them. Megan handed me a faded newspaper clipping. "This article mentions another group of teenagers who went into the grove back in the 80s. They experienced similar things, whispers, visions, nightmares. One of them claimed to have found Eliza's journal, but he disappeared before he could reveal its location." "Maybe that's our key," Alex said. "If we can find the journal, maybe it will tell us how to break the curse." "But how do we find something that's been missing for decades?" I asked, feeling a sense of hopelessness. Megan pointed to a map of the forest. The article mentioned a cave near the grove. "It's a long shot, but it's the only lead we have." We agreed to search for the cave the next day, each of us feeling the weight of the witch's curse pressing down on us. As we left the library, the sky darkened, and a sense of foreboding settled over the town. That night, the nightmares were worse. I saw the witch's face, her eyes burning with hatred, and heard the whispers growing louder, more insistent. "Find the journal. Break the curse." The voices chanted. I woke up in a cold sweat, knowing that we had to find the journal, no matter the cost. The witch's grove had claimed us, and there was no escape from the horrors that awaited us. The following morning, our resolve was stronger, but so was the fear that gripped us. We gathered our supplies and headed back into the forest, following the map to the location where the cave was supposed to be. The journey was silent, each of us lost in our thoughts, the weight of the curse heavy on our shoulders. As we approached the grove, the oppressive atmosphere returned, the fog thickening around us. The whispers started again, faint at first, then growing louder as we neared the grove. My heart pounded, but I pushed forward, determined to find the journal and end this nightmare. We reached the supposed location of the cave, but there was nothing but dense forest. Frustration began to set in as we searched, each minute feeling like an hour. "It's got to be here somewhere," Alex said, his voice tense. "Keep looking." Just as I was about to give up, I noticed a peculiar formation of rocks partially covered by moss and leaves. It looked like an entrance, hidden and almost forgotten. "Over here," I called out, beckoning the others. We cleared away the debris, revealing a narrow, dark passage leading into the earth. A sense of dread washed over me, but there was no turning back now. One by one, we squeezed through the opening, our flashlights barely piercing the darkness. The cave was cold and damp, the air thick with an ancient, musty smell. We moved slowly, our footsteps echoing off the walls. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if urging us deeper into the darkness. Suddenly, Emma let out a gasp. "Look!" She pointed to a small, weathered chest tucked into a crevice in the wall. Alex pried it open, revealing a collection of old, tattered papers. At the top was a journal, its cover marked with strange symbols. Megan carefully lifted it out, her hands shaking. "This has to be it," she said, her voice a mix of fear and excitement. "Eliza's journal." We huddled together, reading the journal by the dim light of our flashlights. It was filled with incantations, notes on dark rituals, and, most importantly, a detailed account of Eliza's curse. "To break the curse, one must make an offering of what is most cherished," Megan read aloud. "Only then will the spirits be appeased, and the nightmares cease." A sense of relief mixed with dread. We had found the answer, but it came with a heavy price. What could we offer that was most cherished? Each of us pondered the question, the reality of our situation sinking in. As we left the cave, the whispers seemed to follow us, a constant reminder of the curse that hung over us. We returned to Alex's house, the journal clutched tightly in Megan's hands. "We need to decide what to do," Alex said, his voice serious. "We can't keep living like this." "I'll do it," I said, surprising myself with the firmness of my voice. "I'll make the offering." The others looked at me with a mix of admiration and fear. "Are you sure?" Emma asked, her voice trembling. I nodded. "We have to break the curse. It's the only way." That night, as I lay in bed, the whispers grew louder, almost deafening. The witch's face appeared before me, her eyes burning with a malevolent fire. "Make the offering," she hissed. "End the curse." I knew what I had to do. The next day, we returned to the grove, the journal in hand. I took a deep breath, stepping forward to face the ancient tree where Eliza had been hanged. "I offer what I cherish most," I whispered, placing my most prized possession at the base of the tree. The ground trembled, and the air grew thick with an oppressive energy. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, the whispers faded, and a sense of peace washed over me. The curse was broken, but the cost was high. We had faced the witch's grove and survived, but the scars of that night would haunt us forever. As we left the grove, the fog began to lift, and the first light of dawn broke through the trees. We walked back to town in silence, each of us changed by the ordeal. The witch's grove had claimed many before us, but we had broken the curse. Or so we thought. Days turned into weeks, and the nightmares seemed to fade. We started to believe that we had truly broken the curse. Life began to return to normal, or as normal as it could be after such an ordeal. But the sense of unease never completely left us. One evening, Alex called us together. "I found something else in the journal," he said, his face pale. "It's a passage I missed before. It talks about a guardian that protects the curse." "What do you mean, a guardian?" Sam asked, his voice tense. "The curse isn't just a curse," Alex explained. "It's guarded by a spirit, one that ensures the curse remains intact. We might have broken the initial curse, but the guardian won't stop until it restores it." A chill ran down my spine. "So, what do we do now?" "We need to confront the guardian," Megan said, her voice resolute. "If we don't, it will come for us." That night, we prepared for what we hoped would be the final confrontation. Armed with the knowledge from Eliza's journal, we returned to the grove, our hearts heavy with fear and determination. The grove was darker than ever, the fog thicker, and the air colder. As we approached the ancient tree, the ground trembled, and a dark, menacing figure emerged from the shadows. The guardian. It was a tall, spectral being, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. It moved with a fluid grace, its presence suffocating. "You have broken the curse," it hissed, its voice echoing through the grove. "But the curse must remain. We won't let you restore it," Alex said, his voice trembling but firm. The guardian laughed, a sound that sent chills down our spines. "You cannot stop what has been set in motion." Suddenly, the ground beneath us cracked open, and shadowy tendrils shot out, wrapping around our legs and pulling us towards the tree. Panic set in as we struggled to free ourselves, but the tendrils were too strong. "Recite the incantation," Megan shouted, thrusting the journal into my hands. With trembling hands, I opened the journal to the page marked by Megan. I began to recite the words, my voice shaking but growing stronger with each syllable. The guardian's laughter turned to a roar of anger, and the tendrils tightened their grip. As I finished the incantation, a blinding light erupted from the journal, engulfing the grove. The tendrils disintegrated, and the guardian shrieked in agony, its form dissolving into the light. When the light faded, the grove was silent. The oppressive atmosphere was gone, replaced by an eerie calm. The ancient tree stood as a silent sentinel, its bark no longer blackened. "We did it," Alex whispered, his voice filled with relief and exhaustion. We stood there in silence, the weight of the moment sinking in. The curse was truly broken, and the guardian defeated. We had faced the witch's grove and emerged victorious, but we knew we would never be the same. As we left the grove for the final time, the first light of dawn broke through the trees, a symbol of a new beginning. We walked back to town, each of us changed by the ordeal, but united by the bond forged in the face of unimaginable horror. The witch's grove had claimed many before us, but we had ended the curse. The nightmares were over, and we were free. Or so we hoped. Months passed, and the memory of the witch's grove began to fade. We resumed our lives, grateful for the normalcy that had returned. Yet, a lingering unease remained, like a shadow that refused to disappear. One night, as I was heading home, I received a frantic call from Emma. "You need to come to Alex's house. Now." Her voice was filled with terror. My heart raced as I sped to Alex's house, dread settling in my stomach. When I arrived, I found the others already there, their faces pale with fear. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice shaking. Alex stepped forward, holding a piece of paper. "I found this in my room this morning." He handed it to me, and my blood ran cold. It was a page from Eliza's journal, one that we had never seen before. It read, "The curse can never be broken. It can only be transferred." "What does this mean?" Lisa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It means we didn't end the curse," Megan said, her face ashen. "We just passed it on." A cold silence fell over us. The realization was horrifying. We hadn't defeated the curse, we had merely shifted its focus. But to whom? A sudden knock on the door made us all jump. Alex cautiously opened it, revealing old man Harris standing on the porch, his eyes wide with fear. "You kids don't know what you've done," he said, his voice trembling. "The curse. It's stronger now." We exchanged horrified glances. "What do you mean?" Sam asked. Harris stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Eliza's curse was never meant to be broken. It feeds on fear, growing stronger with each attempt to end it. By trying to confront it, you've only made it more powerful." Panic set in. "What do we do?" I asked, desperation in my voice. Harris shook his head. "There's nothing you can do. The curse will come for you, one by one." As he spoke, the lights flickered, and a cold wind swept through the room. The whispers returned, louder and more menacing than ever. "You cannot escape." The room plunged into darkness, and we huddled together, fear gripping our hearts. The whispers grew into a deafening roar, and shadows danced around us, closing in. In the chaos, I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I turned, and there she was, the witch, her eyes burning with a malevolent fire. "The curse is eternal," she hissed. "You belong to me now." A blinding pain shot through me, and the world went black. When I came to, I was alone in the grove, the ancient tree looming over me. The whispers were gone, replaced by an oppressive silence. I stumbled back to town, but everything was different. The streets were empty, the buildings dark. It was as if the town itself had been swallowed by the curse. I found my friends, but they were changed, haunted, their eyes hollow. We were all marked by the witch's curse, bound to the grove forever. The nightmares returned, worse than before, and the guardian's laughter echoed in my mind. The Witch's Grove had claimed us, and there was no escape. The curse was eternal, a dark shadow that would haunt us for the rest of our lives. We had thought we could defeat it, but we were wrong. The legend of the Witch's Grove lived on, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lurked in the darkness. And we, the cursed, would forever be its guardians, trapped in a never-ending nightmare.